Ethan Mason loved summer camping trips with his family. This year they went to a small cabin in the woods near Pine Lake. Ethan was 12 years old, with messy brown hair and eyes full of wonder. He always wanted to explore and find adventures. The third day of their trip, while his parents made lunch, Ethan wandered deeper into the forest than usual. He followed a small animal path between tall trees. The sun made patterns on the ground through the leaves. Then he saw something strange. A trail of broken branches and disturbed earth. Something had crashed through the trees. Ethan followed the trail until he saw it. A small silver object half buried in dirt. It was like nothing he had ever seen before. The object was about the size of a car but shaped like a teardrop. It glowed, faintly with blue light along its edges. "Hello?" Ethan called out, his voice small in the quiet forest. He heard a soft noise from behind a fallen tree. Slowly, he walked closer. That's when he saw her. A girl about his age, but clearly not human. Her skin shimmered with a faint purple glow. Her eyes were large and completely black, like looking into space itself. She wore a silver suit that seemed to move like liquid. The girl was hurt. A dark blue liquid dripped from a cut on her arm. She looked scared and pointed something at Ethan that looked like a small remote control. "It's okay," Ethan said, holding up his hands. "I won't hurt you." The girl pressed a button on her device. It made a soft humming sound. Then she spoke, and Ethan heard her words in English. "Are you going to capture me?" she asked, her voice sounding slightly mechanical through the translator. Ethan shook his head. "No, you're hurt. I want to help." Over the next few days, Ethan snuck away from the cabin to visit the alien girl. He learned her name was Lyra. She told him she was from a place called Nirvala, a world orbiting a star thousands of light years away. Lyra explained she was on a training mission with her people when her small scout ship had problems and crashed. "My people will find me soon," she said. "But my ship needs repairs first so it can send a signal." Ethan brought her food, bandages, and tools from his father's toolbox. Lyra showed him pictures of her world on a small device that projected images in the air. Her planet had purple oceans and 3 moons. Lyra was not just any girl from her world. She was the daughter of their leader. "So you're like a princess?" Ethan asked, amazed. Lyra laughed. "Something like that. But I have to earn my place. That's why I was on this mission." Together, they worked on fixing her ship. Lyra taught Ethan about the stars and showed him maps of places humans had never seen. Ethan taught Lyra about Earth things like ice cream and baseball. They became friends despite being from different worlds. After 3 weeks, Lyra's ship was finally fixed. She could now send a signal to her people. On their last night together, they sat on a hill looking up at the stars. "That one." Lyra pointed to a faint star. "My home is near that one." Ethan felt sad. "Will I ever see you again?" Lyra turned to him, her cosmic eyes serious. "I will come back one day when I'm older. My people live much longer than humans. I'll still be young when you're grown up." She took his hand in hers. Her skin felt warm and slightly electric. "In my world, promises are very important," she said. "Will you make me a promise, Ethan Mason?" Ethan nodded, curious. "When I return and we're both grown, will you marry me?" she asked. Ethan's eyes widened. He was only 12. Marriage seemed like something from another life. But it also felt like a game between friends, something far away and not quite real. "Okay," he said with a smile. "I promise." Lyra reached into a pocket on her suit and pulled out a small crystal. It was clear but seemed to have tiny stars floating inside it. "Keep this," she said, pressing it into his palm. "It connects us. When I come back, it will help me find you." Before Ethan could say anything else, they heard a sound from above. A light appeared in the sky, growing larger. Lyra stood up quickly. "That's my rescue ship," she said. "I have to go now." She leaned forward and kissed Ethan on the cheek. "Remember your promise," she whispered. Then she ran toward her small ship. Ethan watched as it rose from the ground, glowing brightly. It shot up into the sky and met with the larger ship above. In seconds, they were gone, leaving only stars. Ethan walked back to his family's cabin, the crystal warm in his pocket. The next day, they packed up and went home. Life went on. School, friends, growing up, all normal things. Sometimes Ethan would take out the crystal and remember the alien girl. But as years passed, the memory began to feel more like a dream or a story he had made up. By the time Ethan was in college studying aerospace engineering, he kept the crystal as a good luck charm but rarely thought about where it came from. By 27, he had a job at a space technology company in Colorado Springs, a small apartment and a normal life. 15 years had passed since that summer. Ethan had forgotten his childhood promise, until the day the sky turned dark at noon, and the largest ships humanity had ever seen appeared above Earth's major cities. The alien ships appeared without warning. One moment the sky was clear blue over Colorado Springs. The next, massive shadows fell across the city as objects blocked the sun. Ethan was at work when it happened. The building shook. Alarms blared. Everyone ran to the windows. "My God," someone whispered, "they're here." The ships were like nothing humans had built. The largest one was shaped like a crescent moon, miles long, hovering directly over the Rocky Mountains. Smaller ships moved around it like bees around a hive. Panic spread quickly. People ran to their cars. Phone networks crashed. The president came on emergency broadcasts calling for calm. The military scrambled jets, but they looked tiny next to the alien vessels. Unlike everyone else, Ethan felt something strange when he saw the ships. Not fear, but recognition. Something pulled at his memory. That night in his apartment, while the city was under emergency curfew, he found himself opening his old keepsake box. Inside was the crystal the alien girl had given him 15 years ago. He had almost forgotten about it. The crystal had always been clear with tiny flecks inside. But now, when Ethan held it, it began to glow with a soft blue light. It felt warm in his hand. "Lyra?" he whispered, the name coming back to him after all these years. The crystal pulsed brighter as if responding to the name. For 3 days, world leaders tried to communicate with the alien ships. Military forces surrounded major cities. People were told to stay indoors. Some believed it was the end of the world. On the 4th day, Ethan couldn't sleep. The crystal by his bed glowed brighter than ever. He felt it calling to him. Without thinking clearly why, he packed a small bag, put the crystal in his pocket, and got in his car. Roadblocks had been set up around the city, but Ethan knew back roads from hiking trips. He drove toward the mountains where the largest ship hovered. The crystal grew warmer the closer he got. At a military checkpoint, Ethan should have been stopped. But when he approached, alarms went off in the guard station. While soldiers ran to check what was happening, Ethan slipped past. As he drove higher into the mountains, his car radio picked up strange signals, voices speaking in unknown languages. The crystal now glowed so brightly it lit up his whole car. Finally, Ethan reached a clearing in the forest. He had to stop because the road ended. The giant ship floated directly overhead, blocking out the stars. Ethan got out of his car, holding the glowing crystal. "I'm here," he said to the night air, not knowing if anyone could hear. A beam of light shot down from the ship, hitting the ground 30 feet in front of him. When the light faded, a smaller ship had appeared. It was sleek and silver, like the scout ship he remembered from his childhood, but larger. A door opened in the side of the ship. A ramp extended to the ground. Ethan stood frozen, his heart pounding. A figure appeared in the doorway. She was tall now, nearly 7 feet, with the same iridescent skin he remembered, but now covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move. Her eyes still reflected the cosmos, but they held wisdom and power that hadn't been there before. She wore armor that seemed made of liquid metal, with a flowing cape that moved like water. "Hello, Ethan," she said, her voice deeper but still familiar. "I've returned as promised." Ethan could barely speak. "Lyra?" She smiled, and in that smile he saw the young girl he had once known. "Yes, though my full title is now Empress Lyra, sovereign of the Nirvalan Empire, protector of the 7 systems." She walked down the ramp with graceful steps. Up close, Ethan could see she had aged, but differently than humans. She looked perhaps in her early 30s, though he knew from what she had told him as a child that she was probably much older. "You've grown," she said, looking him over. "So have you," Ethan replied, finding his voice. "You're an empress now?" Lyra nodded. "My mother passed to the stars 10 cycles ago. I rule in her place." She looked up at the fleet above. "Those are my ships. My protection force." "Protection?" Ethan asked, confused. "Are we in danger?" "Great danger," Lyra said, her face growing serious. "But not from me or my people." She held out her hand. "Come. There is much to explain and little time." Ethan hesitated. "The whole world is terrified right now. People think you're invading." "I know. That's why I needed to find you first. You're the only human who knows me." She pointed to the crystal in his hand. "You kept it, you remembered." "I kept it," Ethan admitted, "but I didn't really remember. Not until you came back." Lyra's eyes showed a flash of hurt, but she nodded. "It doesn't matter. You made a promise, and in my culture, promises are binding, especially promises made to royalty." Ethan suddenly remembered his childhood promise. Marriage. It had seemed like a game then. "Lyra, I was just a kid. I didn't understand." "Please," she interrupted. "Time grows short. Come with me now, and I will explain everything. Your world's fate may depend on it." A noise in the distance made them both turn. Helicopter lights appeared over the trees, moving toward them. "You're military," Lyra said. "They detected my shuttle." She held out her hand again. "Trust me, Ethan, as you once did." Ethan looked at the approaching helicopters, then back at Lyra. Something in her eyes convinced him. He took her hand. They ran up the ramp into the shuttle. The door closed behind them. Inside was a control room with seats that seemed to grow from the floor. Through clear walls, Ethan could see the helicopters getting closer. "Hold on," Lyra said, touching controls on a panel. The shuttle rose smoothly into the air. The helicopters tried to follow, but the shuttle moved too fast. In seconds, they were approaching the massive mothership. "Welcome to the Celestial Harmony," Lyra said as a huge opening appeared in the side of the mothership. "My home among the stars." The shuttle entered the larger ship. Ethan saw an enormous hangar with hundreds of similar shuttles and strange aircraft. Aliens of various kinds moved about. Some looked almost human, others were wildly different. As they landed, Lyra turned to Ethan with serious eyes. "I must tell you why I've returned. It's not just because of our childhood promise, though that is part of it." She touched his face gently. "Your world stands at the edge of destruction, Ethan, and you may be the key to saving it." Ethan stared at her, trying to process everything. "Me? I'm just an engineer. I'm nobody important." Lyra smiled, sadly. "That's where you're wrong. To my people, you may be the most important human on Earth." Inside the massive alien ship, Ethan felt dizzy. Everything was strange. The air smelled like cinnamon and metal, the lights pulsed with the ship's heartbeat, and gravity felt slightly off. Lyra led him through corridors where the walls seemed alive, changing colors as they passed. "My people have watched your world for centuries," Lyra explained as they walked. "We rarely interfere with developing planets. But circumstances have changed." They entered a large room with a window showing Earth below, blue, green, and swirling white clouds. Around a crescent-shaped table sat 5 aliens. They all looked similar to Lyra, but with different colored skin and markings. "My High Council," Lyra said. "They help me rule." The aliens studied Ethan with curious eyes. One with blue-tinted skin spoke in a deep voice. "So this is the human from your childhood, the one from the prophecy." "Prophecy?" Ethan asked, looking at Lyra. "What prophecy?" Lyra waved her hand. A hologram appeared in the center of the room, showing strange symbols and stars. Our oldest writings tell of a time when darkness would threaten our worlds, she explained. They speak of an alliance with a being from a blue world orbiting a yellow star that would help us fight this darkness. Ethan shook his head. And you think that's me? Because we met when we were kids? The prophecy says the alliance would be sealed through a sacred promise, another council member said. The promise you made to our Empress. Ethan felt uncomfortable. I was 12. I didn't know what I was promising. In our culture, age doesn't matter for promises, Lyra said softly. The words create a bond. When you said you would marry me when we both grew up, it became truth in our laws. Ethan needed to sit down. One of the chairs reshaped itself to fit his human body. So, you've come back to collect me? Because of some ancient prophecy? Lyra's face showed pain. It's more complicated than that. The darkness in our prophecy is real. We call them the Void Heralds. They consume entire star systems. Nothing survives their passing. She touched the hologram. It changed to show a black cloud, moving through space, swallowing planets and stars. For 1,000 years they stayed in distant galaxies. Now they approach this part of space. Your solar system is directly in their path. So you came to warn us? Ethan asked. To warn you, to help you, and to ask for your help in return, Lyra said. Earth sits at a strategic point. With your world as an ally, we might stop the Void Heralds before they destroy more worlds. The blue-skinned council member spoke again. Our Empress has convinced us to offer your people protection. Our technology can shield Earth from the Heralds, but we require something in return. Ethan already knew the answer. Me. Lyra nodded slowly. The marriage bond between us would seal the alliance between our worlds according to our oldest laws. It would also fulfill the prophecy, possibly giving us the power to defeat the Void Heralds forever. And if I say no? Ethan asked. The council members looked at each other. Lyra answered, Then we cannot justify using our resources to protect Earth. My first duty is to my own people. Ethan stood up, angry now. So it's blackmail? Marry you or watch Earth be destroyed? No, Lyra said quickly. It's not like that. The prophecy says our union will unlock ancient powers. Without that power, even my fleet cannot stop the Void Heralds. Your world would fall, and then mine would follow. Before Ethan could respond, an alarm sounded. A new hologram appeared, showing Earth's military leaders gathered in an emergency meeting. They demand to speak with our leaders, a new alien said, entering the room. They threaten to attack if we don't respond. Lyra sighed. It's time to explain our presence. She looked at Ethan. Will you stand with me? Your people might listen. If one of their own speaks for us. Ethan felt trapped. He barely understood what was happening, yet somehow the fate of Earth seemed to rest on his shoulders. I'll listen to what you tell them, he said carefully. But I won't lie to my people. Lyra nodded. I would expect nothing less. 20 minutes later, Ethan found himself in a large communication chamber. On a massive screen appeared the faces of Earth's leaders, the American President, the UN Secretary General, and military commanders from several countries. Their faces showed shock when they saw Ethan standing beside Lyra. This is Ethan Mason, the President said, the engineer who disappeared 3 days ago. Are you a prisoner? No, Mr. President, Ethan answered. I came voluntarily. Empress Lyra and I knew each other many years ago. Lyra stepped forward. Leaders of Earth, I am Empress Lyra of the Nirvalan Empire. We come not as conquerors but as potential allies against a threat that endangers us all. She explained about the Void Heralds. Using holograms, she showed evidence of star systems that had been destroyed. The Earth leaders listened with growing concern. Then came the difficult part. We offer our protection, Lyra said. Our technology can shield your world from the Heralds. In return, we ask for one thing. And what is that? Asked the UN Secretary. Honor must be satisfied, Lyra said. Years ago, Ethan Mason made a sacred promise to me under our laws. He agreed to marry me when we both came of age. I have returned to claim this promise, which our prophecies say will help defeat our common enemy. Silence fell, then an uproar of voices. This is absurd. You expect us to believe this? One man in exchange for the planet? The president raised his hand for silence. Mr. Mason, did you make such a promise? Ethan stepped forward. Sir, I was 12 years old when I met Lyra. She was stranded on Earth and I helped her. Before she left, she asked me to make that promise. I didn't understand what it meant to her people. Yet you made it, Lyra said quietly. The Secretary General spoke next. Empress Lyra, surely you can't hold a child's promise as binding. This seems like an excuse to gain control over our world through this man. Lyra's eyes flashed. We do not need excuses to take what we want. If conquest was our goal, your world would already be ours. We come with warning and offer protection because of my personal connection to your world through Ethan. And military, General spoke up. And if we refuse this arrangement, then we cannot justify expending our resources to protect Earth, Lyra said simply. We would withdraw our fleet to protect our own worlds. Your planet would face the Void Heralds alone. That sounds like a threat, the General said angrily. It is reality, Lyra countered. Without the bond created by honoring Ethan's promise, we cannot access the power needed to defeat the Heralds. Both our worlds would suffer. The Earth leaders asked for time to discuss privately. When the communication ended, Ethan turned to Lyra. You're putting me in an impossible position, he said, making me choose between my freedom and my planet's safety. Lyra's eyes softened. There's something I haven't told you yet. She dismissed her council members with a gesture. When they were alone, she continued. The prophecy doesn't just speak of a political union, she said softly. It speaks of two souls connected across the stars. When I met you as a child, I felt that connection. Part of me has always believed it was real, not just politics. She took his hand. The marriage our laws require doesn't have to be what you fear. It can be a partnership of equals. Ethan looked into her cosmic eyes. He remembered the young girl who had shown him the stars. Could he really blame her for believing in her culture's ways? I need time, he said finally. And I need to know more about these Void Heralds. How do I know they're real? Lyra nodded. I will show you. Tomorrow we will take a ship to the edge of our defense perimeter. You can see the darkness for yourself. She squeezed his hand gently. I've given your leaders 2 weeks to decide. I give you the same time to remember the bond we once shared. The next 2 days were a blur for Ethan. Lyra showed him around her massive ship. He saw technology beyond human imagination, medical bays where injuries healed in minutes, engines that bent space itself, and food that appeared from thin air. And the third day, Lyra kept her promise. They boarded a small, fast ship and traveled to the edge of the solar system. There, Ethan saw it through the ship's enhanced viewing system, a darkness beyond normal space, moving slowly toward Earth's solar system. It swallowed light itself. The Void Heralds, Lyra said quietly. They've already consumed 3 star systems in this sector. Ethan watched in horror as the darkness pulsed and moved like something alive. What are they? We don't know exactly, Lyra admitted. Some believe they're a weapon created by an ancient civilization. Others think they evolved naturally in the spaces between galaxies. What we do know is they feed on energy. Stars, planets, life itself. The evidence was undeniable. Earth was indeed in danger, just as Lyra claimed. When they returned to the mothership, Ethan made a request. I want to talk to Earth's leaders alone, and I want a team of our scientists to work with your people. If I'm going to help convince my world to accept your offer, I need to understand everything. Lyra agreed. She arranged for Ethan to speak, privately with the president and for a small team of Earth's top scientists to visit the mothership. The team arrived the next day. Dr. Olivia Wright, a brilliant biologist with curly red hair and sharp green eyes, Commander Samantha Foster, a tactical expert from the Space Force with short blonde hair and a no-nonsense attitude, and 3 other specialists in physics, communications, and diplomacy. Our job is to verify everything the aliens are telling us, Commander Foster told Ethan when they met in private. The president doesn't trust this marriage story. Neither do I, Ethan admitted. But the threat is real. I've seen it. Dr. Wright studied him carefully. Tell us everything from the beginning. Ethan shared his childhood story of meeting Lyra, the promise he made, and everything that had happened since the fleet arrived. The team listened carefully, asking detailed questions. We need access to their historical records, Dr. Wright said. This prophecy seems too convenient. Over the next week, while Earth's governments debated Lyra's ultimatum, the team worked tirelessly. Lyra gave them access to the ship's library, historical records, and scientific data about the Void Heralds. Commander Foster studied their weapons and defenses. Dr. Wright analyzed Nirvalan biology and culture. At night, Ethan spent time with Lyra. She showed him holograms of her homeworld with its purple oceans and 3 moons. She told him about growing up as royalty, the burden of leadership, and her mother's death. Slowly, Ethan began to see the person behind the Empress. Did you ever forget me? He asked one night as they looked at Earth through a viewing window. Lyra smiled sadly. Never. In our culture, first connections are important. You were the first human I ever met, the first person who helped me without wanting anything in return. She touched his hand. I kept my own crystal paired with yours. On difficult days, I would hold it and remember the kind boy in the forest. Ethan felt confused. Part of him was drawn to Lyra, to the connection they shared. But another part feared being used as a political tool. On the 10th day, everything changed. Dr. Wright asked to meet Ethan privately in a small research room. Her face was tense. I found something, she said, showing him a translation of ancient Nirvalan texts. The prophecy has been mistranslated, perhaps deliberately. She pointed to specific symbols. It doesn't say marriage or union in the way they've been telling us. The original text speaks of 2 worlds joining paths and the heart of stars awakening in a child of Earth. Commander Foster joined them, bringing more evidence. Their council records showed debates about how to approach Earth. Some wanted direct conquest. Lyra argued against it, but agreed to use your childhood promise as leverage. Ethan felt his heart sink. So it was all manipulation? Not entirely, Dr. Wright said. The Void Heralds are real, but the marriage requirement seems to be a political construction. Ethan confronted Lyra that evening in her private chambers. The room was filled with plants from her homeworld, glowing softly in the dim light. You lied to me, he said, showing her the evidence. The prophecy doesn't require us to marry. Lyra's face showed genuine pain. I didn't lie about everything. My council, they pushed for this interpretation. They believed Earth wouldn't help us without pressure. So you used our childhood connection to manipulate my world. Lyra sank into a chair. You must understand my position. My people face extinction. The Council wanted to simply take Earth's resources to build more weapons. I convinced them to try diplomacy first, using our connection as the foundation. She looked up at him, her cosmic eyes sad. But I didn't lie about remembering you, about keeping my crystal all these years. That was real. Before Ethan could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lyra's communication device lit up. Empress, we have detected Void Herald scout ships entering the solar system. A voice reported urgently. Lyra stood quickly. How many? 3 vessels approaching Jupiter's orbit. Prepare defense squadrons, she ordered. She turned to Ethan. Come to the command center. See the truth of the threat we face. In the massive command center, hundreds of Nirvalans worked at control stations. On the main view screen, 3 black ships appeared, moving fast through space. They absorbed the light around them, leaving trails of darkness. Scout vessels, Lyra explained. They test defenses before the main force arrives. How long until the main force gets here? Ethan asked. 2 months, perhaps less, Lyra said grimly. These scouts will report back on your system's defenses. She gave orders, and 20 Nyrvalan fighter ships launched from the mothership. The battle that followed was unlike anything Ethan had seen. The alien fighters fired weapons that bent space around the dark ships. The Void Heralds responded with beams of pure darkness that erased anything they touched. In the end, the Nyrvalans destroyed the scout ships, but lost 7 of their own fighters. The command center was silent after the battle. Now you see, Lyra said quietly. Even our advanced weapons barely affect them. The main force will be 100 times stronger. Ethan nodded slowly. I believe the threat, but I still don't believe. The solution is forcing me into a political marriage. Lyra dismissed her officers. When they were alone, she spoke softly. There's another part of the prophecy my council doesn't fully understand. She touched a control panel, and a new hologram appeared, ancient symbols surrounding an image of Earth. Your planet holds something important. Our ancestors visited Earth thousands of years ago. They left something here, a defense system that could stop the Void Heralds. What kind of defense system? Ethan asked. We don't know exactly. The records were damaged, but it requires activation by both our species. Someone of royal Nyrvalan blood and a human with the heart of stars. She touched his chest gently. The crystal I gave you as a child. It's been changing you in small ways, preparing you. That's why it started glowing when we returned. Ethan took out the crystal. It pulsed with blue light, stronger than before. So there is a connection between us, he said slowly. But not the one your council is using for politics. Lyra nodded. The old texts speak of partners, not spouses, equals working together. She took a deep breath. I've been caught between my duty to my people and the truth. Perhaps there is another way forward that doesn't require the marriage my council demands. As they spoke, the crystal in Ethan's hand began to glow brighter. Suddenly it floated up between them, spinning faster and faster. A beam of light shot from it, creating a map on the wall, a map of Earth with a point glowing in the Rocky Mountains, not far from where Ethan had first met Lyra. The activation point, Lyra whispered. The crystal is showing us where to find the ancient defense system. They looked at each other, a new understanding forming between them. We need to go there, Ethan said, and we need to tell the truth to both our peoples. The next morning, Ethan and Lyra called a joint meeting with both the Nyrvalan High Council and Earth's leaders. The atmosphere was tense as both sides appeared on giant screens in the ship's communication chamber. We've discovered new information, Ethan announced. The ancient prophecy has been misinterpreted. Lyra stood tall beside him. The texts don't require a political marriage between our worlds. They speak of a partnership between equals to activate a defense system hidden on Earth, long ago by my ancestors. The High Council members looked shocked. The blue-skinned counselor spoke angrily. Empress, this goes against our agreed approach. I choose truth over manipulation, Lyra replied firmly. The Void Heralds are real, but we've been wrong about how to fight them. Ethan held up the crystal, now glowing brightly. This has revealed the location of the defense system. It's in the Rocky Mountains where Lyra and I first met 15 years ago. Earth's president leaned forward. You're saying there's alien technology hidden on our planet? Yes, Lyra said. My ancestors visited Earth thousands of years ago. They left safeguards in key locations throughout the galaxy to be activated if the Void Heralds ever returned. Dr. Wright and Commander Foster joined Ethan, presenting their research findings. The ancient texts clearly showed the mistranslation. The true prophecy spoke of 2 worlds joining paths, and a human with the heart of stars standing with the royal blood of Nirvala. We request permission to investigate this location, Ethan said to the president. With a joint team of humans and Nirvalans. After hours of debate, both sides agreed. The next day, a small ship carried Ethan, Lyra, Dr. Wright, Commander Foster, and 3 Nyrvalan scientists to the coordinates in the Rocky Mountains. They landed in a clearing surrounded by tall pine trees. This is where we met, Ethan said, looking around. I found you right over there, behind that fallen tree. Lyra nodded. I remember. You weren't afraid of me even though I looked so different. The crystal in Ethan's hand pulled him forward, growing warmer as he walked. The group followed him up a small hill and into a cave hidden behind rocks. Inside, the walls were covered, with strange symbols that matched those in the Nirvalan records. These are navigation markers, one of the Nirvalan scientists explained. They point the way. They followed the cave deeper into the mountain. After half a mile, they entered a vast chamber that seemed impossible. It was bigger than a football stadium hidden inside the mountain. In the center stood a circular platform with 7 pillars around it. The seed core, Lyra whispered. Just like in the ancient texts. The crystal pulled Ethan toward the platform. As he stepped onto it, sections of the floor lit up with blue energy. Lyra joined him and more lights activated. The texts say the seed core requires both bloodlines to awaken, Lyra explained. Royal Nirvalan and human with the heart of stars, which must mean a human changed by the crystal. In the center of the platform was a small pedestal with 2 handprints, one shaped for a human hand, one for a Nirvalan 6-fingered hand. Together, Ethan said, looking at Lyra, they placed their hands on the prints simultaneously. The crystal floated up from Ethan's hand and hovered between them. Energy surged through the chamber. The pillars began to glow, and a holographic display appeared above them, showing Earth and the surrounding space. A voice spoke in an ancient language. Lyra translated, Seed World Earth, activation sequence initiated. Defense network connecting. The hologram expanded to show the entire solar system. Then lines of energy extended outward, connecting to distant points of light throughout the galaxy. The defense network, Lyra explained, amazed. It connects all 7 seed worlds my ancestors created. Seed worlds? Dr. Wright asked. Planets seeded with life by my ancestors, Lyra explained. Earth is one of them. That's why humans and Nirvalans are biologically compatible. The voice spoke again. Lyra listened carefully, her eyes widening. It says Earth is not just a seed world. It's a key world, the central point of the defense network. The other 6 worlds form a perimeter around it. Energy flowed from the pedestal into both Ethan and Lyra. They gasped as information flooded their minds. Images of ancient Nirvalans creating the network, seeding worlds with life, building the defense system. I understand now, Lyra said, her voice awed. The prophecy wasn't about a political marriage. It was about forming a bond between our worlds through us, awakening the defense network that requires both our genetic signatures. The energy flow intensified. Ethan felt his body changing, becoming something more than human. Lyra, too, was transforming, her royal markings glowing with new patterns. Genetic reconfiguration complete, the ancient voice announced. Guardians activated. When the energy faded, Ethan and Lyra stood changed. Their eyes both held the cosmos now. Their skin showed similar markings, his faintly glowing blue, hers with her royal purple. What happened to them? Commander Foster asked, stepping back. Dr. Wright scanned them with equipment. Their DNA has been altered. They're hybrids now, either fully human nor fully Nirvalan. Ethan looked at his hands, now faintly glowing like Lyra's. I can feel the network. I can sense the Void Heralds approaching. As can I, Lyra said, and I know how to activate the defenses. Together they placed their hands on the pedestal again. The holographic display changed to show the solar system's edge where the Void Heralds approached. Energy beams shot out from Earth, connecting to the other 6 seed worlds across the galaxy. The beams formed a web that pulsed with power. The shield is forming, Lyra explained to the others. When the Void Heralds reach it, the network will push them back. But there was more. In their connected minds, Ethan and Lyra saw beyond defense to understanding. The Void Heralds weren't simply destroyers. They were incomplete beings, seeking energy to fill their emptiness. We can help them, Ethan said suddenly. Not just fight them. The network doesn't just defend, it can heal. Lyra nodded. The final translation of the prophecy. Not through union of bodies, but through union of worlds, shall the void be filled with light once more. A week later, representatives from Earth and the Nirvalan Empire gathered at the Seed Corps chamber. The president stood with the UN Secretary-General, while Lyra's High Council attended via hologram. Ethan and Lyra, now permanently changed by the activation, explained what they had learned. Earth and Nirvala are connected by ancient bonds, Lyra said. We were always meant to find each other again. The defense network requires both our worlds working together, Ethan added. Not through political marriage or conquest, but through genuine partnership. They proposed a new covenant between Earth and the Nirvalan Empire, a mutual defense agreement and cultural exchange. The network would protect both worlds from the Void Heralds, while they worked together to understand how to heal the lost beings rather than simply fighting them. As guardians, we stand between our worlds, Lyra said. Not as empress and subject, but as equals. The childhood promise I made was fulfilled, but not as anyone expected, Ethan said. I promised to join with Lyra when we grew up. Now we are, joined as guardians of the network, protectors of both our peoples. The signing ceremony took place on the platform, with the network glowing around them. As Earth's leaders and Nirvala's council signed the covenant, Ethan and Lyra stood together, their transformed bodies glowing with shared power. When I asked you to marry me as a child, I didn't understand what I was really asking, Lyra said, quietly to Ethan. Now we share something deeper than marriage. We share a purpose, Ethan agreed, and maybe that's what the prophecy meant all along. 3 days later, the first wave of Void Heralds reached the edge of the solar system. As they approached, the defense network activated. Beams of light shot from Earth to the 6 other seed worlds, across the galaxy. Together they created a web of energy that met the darkness. Where light and void touched, something new formed, not destruction, but transformation. The Void Heralds changed, their darkness filling with stars, becoming new sources of creation rather than consumption. From the Seed Corps chamber, Ethan and Lyra directed the network, their minds connected to all 7 worlds. They felt the change, rippling through space as ancient enemies became allies. The void filled with light once more, Lyra whispered, quoting the prophecy. Ethan took her hand. Their markings glowed in response. Not the end we expected, but a better one, she replied. Outside, the mountain, humans, and Nirvalans watched the sky together as darkness turned to light. A new chapter had begun for both worlds, born from a childhood promise and fulfilled in ways no one could have imagined. As the last of the Void Heralds transformed, Ethan looked at Lyra. You said you'd marry me when I grew up. I guess we both grew up differently than we expected, Lyra smiled. The best promises are the ones that grow with us. Together they walked out of the mountain to face their new future, not as empress and subject, not as alien and human, but as guardians of 2 worlds now forever connected among the stars.